Well, hello, hello, hello. I am Pastor Rhonda, founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry and your host of Celebrate Life Today. And I thank you so much for joining us. I'm excited to have my friend with me, the Reverend Dr. Rosalyn Brookins, Pastor Roz in my world. Hello,
Yes.
Roz.
Hello, how are you?
Simply marvelous and happy to have you with me today.
Thank you for the invitation. I'm happy to be here with you as well.
So Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry was a ministry that the Lord gave me as I come. You know what? I always say as I finish my cancer journey, but He gave this to me in the midst of my cancer journey. I was diagnosed. My journey actually began on 9/11, 2001. The same day the world was turned upside down. And I went to the doctor and he said, I don't think it's anything, but let me do this little needle aspiration. And I said, a needle, what in the world? And he turned around to that magic drawer and he pulled out a needle that seemed like, you can't even see it in the camera, that big.
Right.
And I'm like, what you getting ready to do with that? And he says, I'm going to insert it into the location, see if I get some fluid, send it to pathology and see what they say. And I said, so who's supposed to hold me while you do that? And he said, you're going to hold yourself or I'm leaving. And I was like, okay. He snapped me into reality. He did what he had to do. And he said he'd see me in 3 weeks, but 3 days later, I got that magic phone call that says, you have an appointment with the doctor on Monday at 10. And I'm like, how do they know I'm not busy? Setting my appointments for me. But I was obedient. I had the weekend to talk to God, to find out, Lord, what does the doctor want with me? And said, well, if he says this, then I'll do this. And if he says that, then I'll do that. But I don't know what he wants. And so let me just go in here on Monday and see what he has to say. And I go in and they move me past all the rooms where you just robe to the room with the couch.
Yes.
I'm like, wow, this room really exists. And he said, I have good news and bad news. The good news is I'm glad you let me do the test. The bad news is you have cancer. And so I was ultimately diagnosed with inflammatory breast cancer, stage 3B, my first mammogram, age 40. Voila. And that launched a entire new life for me. I ended up going through a lumpectomy, 6 rounds of chemotherapy, a mastectomy, 4 more rounds of chemotherapy, and then 25 days of radiation. And at the end of that, I decided I needed to throw a party. That party turned into a ministry, and that ministry has grown over the last 20 years. So I am now a 20-year cancer survivor and launching this television show that's going to be broadcasted on the Hope Broadcasting Network. And we're taking the message across the world now. And I am so glad to have you with me, Pastor Roz, to share your journey and your testimony. And as we were talking, I realized that your testimony actually begins with alcoholism.
Yes.
You want to tell us about that?
Sure. Thank you again for having me on. I actually started drinking when I was 14 years old. I grew up, like many of us, in a very dysfunctional household. My father was an alcoholic. My biological mother, I didn't know anything about. She had left when my twin brother and I were about 14 months old. So I never smelled her fragrance. I've never been held by her, coddled by her, any of that. But at 14, I remember distinctly going into the refrigerator, and there was this clear glass with, what appeared to be water was actually my father's gin. And I remember taking it, Pastor Rhonda, and at first it just kind of burned, that burning sensation that goes down. But I noticed immediately it was some power behind it, or I felt like there was some power. So that was my first time drinking, but it continued because he would continue to put his gin or his vodka in the refrigerator, and I would always be the one to go in and slip a drink or two.
Oh, okay. I was like, he didn't miss it.
Oh, yeah, no, he did, but so that continued up until I was about 18 years old. At 18, I was a full-blown alcoholic, and no one really knew it because I was what we call in the AA rooms functional alcoholic. I was still getting up, going to school, doing my homework and that kind of stuff. And so by the time I was 23, I was not only an alcoholic, but now I was a drug addict as well. So I'm alcoholic and drug addict, and still able to, what I thought was functioning was really not functioning. Okay. Right. And so that continued. And I, you grow up in a family that's dysfunctional. You see your father beating the crap out of your stepmother. So you think that's the normal life. Right. And so I really did not think there was anything wrong with my behavior. That's what I grew up with. And because I did not have that kind of support system, I wanted to emulate my father, because one thing I recognized was when I drank, I had this enormous amount of power. I could tell people off and not feel bad about it, and then say, oh, it was the drink. You know I was drinking last night. You do know that, right? And so that started a cycle of just craziness, just complete craziness. And actually, I didn't get sober until I was 30. So from 14 to 30, and I thank God that even in high school, as dysfunctional as I was, God started putting people in my life. Now, keep in mind, let me digress for a moment. I was molested at an early age. I was then again at 13 by some neighborhood boys, coming home from school one day. And then at 17, while working at Kentucky Fried Chicken, the manager there violated me. So I had a cycle of dysfunctional behavior that I thought, I just numbed out. So it didn't matter to me. I was able to go through AA, BA, both high school AA and a BA drinking, and go to class every day and graduated. So of course I didn't see anything wrong with my behavior. It wasn't until I was older, and at that time it was my boyfriend, now husband, Bishop H.H. Brookins, my late husband rather, that I started, it was during a party that I had thrown at his house while he was out of town, that someone said to me, you need to get some help. If you don't get any help, you're going to die like this. And something about that dying it just messed up my whole cool. Right. My high was blown. And I was like, no, I can't die like this. So I then went and got help, but I did not get help, Pastor Rhonda, because I wanted to be sober. No. I didn't want to stop drinking martinis. I wanted to be able to do what we saw Marilyn Monroe do, what we saw Elizabeth Taylor do on television. White women were able to put their drinks down. In Lady Sings the Blues, Diana Ross was not able to put hers down. She was not able to walk away from the drugs. So I didn't want that life. I wanted this life. You understand what I'm saying? So when I went into rehab, certainly it was not about me stopping the drinking or the drugs. It was simply, I just wanted to learn how to put the glass down on the table and then come back to it. So because of my denial and because of my saying, I really don't have a problem, what was supposed to be 30 days in rehab ended up being 120 days. Wow. Right. And God was so instrumental. So strategic, rather. He gave me a white counselor, female counselor. So, I'm having all these issues because I'm like, I don't, but I never will forget. She said to me, She said, if you don't admit you have a problem, you can never get help for the problem. And so for me, that was 30 days, 60 days later that I was saying, okay, maybe I have just a small problem, not really, it's really not out of control yet, but it was headed that way. And the truth is I was out of control.
Right.
I just didn't want to say I was out of control. So that's how my journey started. And so I would like to say that it's a journey of hope and a journey of healing, because there was a lot of stuff that I took in as a kid, as a child, and you see this kind of stuff. And so that was the first part. Yeah, the alcoholism. But I want to say to you, Pastor, no one wakes up saying, I'm going to be an alcoholic.
Right.
No one does. No one wakes up and say, I've decided I'm going to be a failure today. I don't know anyone. Yeah. Yeah. And so for that, it's important for us to also state that alcoholism is just like cancer. It's a disease.
Yes.
It's a disease. And that's why I appreciate you starting there, because for the 3 topics that you're speaking on, each is a disease within itself.
Amen.
Right? And we don't talk a lot about, especially clergy women. Rarely do we talk about those things that sometimes are not as easy to talk about. We don't talk enough about being molested. We don't talk about, it's amazing, because I want to throw this in and we can move forward however you see fit. But I was ridiculed for dating an older man, but nobody raised the issue why the older man was coming after a younger woman. I was ridiculed. And I often think of that, because we sometimes, as a community, we are so willing to mute the woman's voice, to silence her voice. And that's why I so appreciate what you're doing now, is because we deserve to have our stories told that's going to bring dignity to each person who's listening to it, Yeah. So
I think it's also amazing too, because as women of God, people have put us on such a pedestal that if they could see in our closet, they would snatch the pedestal so fast that they'll say, well, why would you go? Because surely, I've got a story too along that line.
Right.
And people, you've done that. Yeah, these are the things that we have done, because these are the things that God has used to make us who we are today. Right. So surely we ought not be ashamed of our past, but to use it as stepping stones to go forward and to declare God's goodness.
Absolutely.
On where He has brought us from.
Well, let me just say something about that, Pastor. I think part of the problem or the challenge is we live in a patriarchal system. And so because of that system, even when there's an opportunity rather to be transparent, we are most women, when I say we, I'm speaking women now. When I began to tell my story of how I got over, I had a woman to say to me who was high up in the church, oh, I wouldn't tell my story about how the Lord, about alcoholism, because people just don't need to know that story. What I found interesting was I said to her at that time, I really didn't have a real relationship with God. I just was saved, but not really like I'm walking now. But I knew enough about God to say to her, well, if you have a problem with what God has done for me, that's your problem, not mine. But I have to tell this story. However, Pastor, men in the ministry get away with so much more. They can have all kinds of hiccups in their ministry. They can, do whatever they want to do, and they're going to be moved from one church to another. If you and I did the very same thing, not only will we be cascaded by our peers, we will also be demeaned and belittled by people who look just like us. I remember when, and I don't want to call her name because we know who, I don't want to disrespect her, but I know that when she was married to this particular high influential individual, and the marriage started having problems, and what happened was everybody that knew her started speaking ill against her. No one spoke ill about the man, and I think for us, that's, you talked about that pedestal, but it's important for us to not understand the reason I can speak out today is because I had women who saw the gift of God in me, even when I couldn't see it myself, and would say to me, okay, it's okay for you to tell your story. When I went to church, I got baptized 3 times looking for Jesus. Nobody told me I just needed one time. I went to the Baptist church. I went to the Church of God in Christ. But I was looking for Jesus, And so
squeaky clean.
I'm looking for Jesus. Can you help me? Right. But we don't mentor each other.
Right.
Women, generally, like men do. Men they'll get in the room, talk about each other. But when they come out of that room, they're going to pat each other on the back and say, all right, man, go for it. We don't really do that. So I think it's important for us as women to look at how we assist in keeping that patriarchal system alive.
Yes.
Does that make sense to you?
It does.
Yeah.
So another part of your journey includes depression. So where did that seep in?
Well, remember, I said I did not know my mother.
Right.
So all of my life, I dealt with rejection, abandonment issues, not wanting to be, not feeling like I was not worthy of being, invited to birthday parties. I was never invited to birthday parties because we didn't really have friends. And, we came from a neighborhood where everybody knew everybody's business. And so, of course, on our street, my daddy was the one who showed out every weekend. You know what I'm saying? And so I had very little self-esteem, self-worth, self-belief. And I believe that I really had bouts of depression all of my life. I even, now have some bouts of depression. And growing up, I was never told that it was okay to see a therapist. I was never told that I could take medication. I was never told, because, of course, in our community, what goes on in your house stays in your house. So in my house, it was a whole lot of hell going on. You understand? So I really needed that to stay in the house. I didn't want a soul to know that you're being abused in your home. You come to school, you barely have enough food to eat. I walked to school, it was raining, and we had holes in the bottom of my shoes. I had holes in the bottom of my shoes. And so I remember distinctly saying, I just don't want to be here anymore, because the children, of course, would make fun of me and laugh at me and sing songs about me having to wear white shoes from Easter into the winter, because you only got 2 pair of shoes. You're going to get some Christmas shoes and some Easter shoes. You know what I'm saying? And so I think at an early age, that's why I drank. Drinking isn't, people don't drink just to be drinking. They drink because well, let me rephrase this. Alcoholics drink.
There you go.
Let me speak for myself. I was looking for a way of escape.
Yes.
When the alcohol no longer worked for me, then depression which was always there, became bigger than life. Okay. So I probably around 18, 19, I started recognizing something was not right, but I couldn't tell anyone because, of course, you're the alcoholic in the family. You're the black sheep in the family. You're the one doing what I'm going against the grain. So who you going to tell that your mind is just not quite right, you know?
So tell me, what did you feel that if you can remember, what were you feeling that seemed to be the beginning of depression?
Feeling abandoned, feeling there's an emptiness. When you grow up in a home where there's no real presence of support, no real presence, there's a void there that nothing fills it. And you constantly trying to figure out what's wrong with me. Why am I feeling like this? Why am I feeling so empty? You know, I don't ever remember being told I was pretty.
Wow.
I don't ever remember being said I was smart or brilliant. None of those things that my sisters did the best they could with me, but I use this term, and it's no disrespect to them. I love them with everything in me, but we all grew up in the same environment. So they didn't have the capacity to carry me from a broken place to a place of healing. You understand what I'm saying? In my family, I'm the darkest person in my family. My sisters all had very long hair, fair skin. I didn't. My hair was kinky, and I had because I was malnourished. I had a huge stomach. Nobody knew that we were malnourished because, of course, in our community, they weren't talking about it. So I remember going back and because my sisters had long hair, the mop strings that we used to have, the old mop strings. I remember putting that on my hair just so I could shake my hair, just so something could move. Because their hair, when they shook their hair moved, mine didn't. And so that emptiness at that time was not described as depression because exactly. Who we're going to tell? You understand what I'm saying? So from a child, from early on, I felt empty. And I didn't really get any help for it until maybe real help. Now, I'm talking going to therapy about almost 10 years ago. So I've been in therapy ever since because I was in a class, and I don't know if you know her, but a dear friend of mine, Dr. Tamar Bryan Davis, who is a renowned psychologist and poet, but she works at Pepperdine. So she's a professor at Pepperdine University. I was taking a class. She came into the class as a guest speaker, and I'm pastoring Pastor Rhonda at Walker Temple. No one knew, you go through all of your life. So for me, feeling good about myself was dressing up. Right? Because we judge people by what they look like, not what they carry. That's our community, right? So you have to have, you have to have everything in place. Like I was worried about this bow this morning because it has to be in place, right? Right? And so she said these words to me, and she said, she was talking to the group, but I knew she was speaking directly to my soul. And she said, you can zap out now, but when you zap back in, I'll still be here. Well, I was accustomed to zapping out. I was accustomed to going off on people who didn't agree with me. I was even in the pulpit. I was accustomed to saying what I wanted to say, right? Because that was this pain speaking. I remember her leaving the class, and I ran after her saying, I need some therapy. I need some help, right? And so even now, I still get depressed, but it's not, I can recognize that it's coming, so now I get on the phone, I'm going to call my therapist and say, hey, I need some help. Can you jump in the fight? because I think there's also a stigma around mental illness that's within our community, and so we don't openly, readily speak about being depressed and a pastor. Huh?
Right. The word of God's supposed to fix that.
Right. Right.
You should pray your way out of that.
Right. And that's what I think that's the fallacy, Pastor Rhonda, is that in our community, we've said, pray about it.
Right.
And when you pray, you're going to zap out of it and it's going to be over and you're finished and yay, you are healed. Well, that's not true. Not
always.
Well, God deals with us holistic in a three-tier healing process: mind, body, and soul. So usually when we're telling somebody to pray, we're talking spirit. We're not talking body and mind, right? So how is my mind going to be fixed if I can't even tell you, who is my spiritual leader, that my mind is having a different thought process than yours?
Right.
So I openly now speak about depression from my pulpit. I tell my people, go get you some help. And they already know, because I'll say to them, okay, today is my session day. If you're not on your way to dying, please hold up on dying till I get through. And you have to make it a joke sometimes, just so you can get through it.
Right.
Just so I can get through a day. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes I can get through. Sometimes I can't bounce back as quickly. So I take medication if I have to. I see a therapist at least every 2 weeks. Why? Because we give out so much.
So much.
You're giving out even in your sleep. Your mind rarely turns off, right? So I think part of what you are allowing me to do today, and I want to say again, is you truly are allowing me to celebrate life in its total, the total package of what this looks like for me. Now, that doesn't mean it's this way for everyone. You know what I'm saying? But for me, we can't talk about me being healed from cancer if I didn't learn how to fight from alcoholism, abuse, neglect. So when you ask the question, what does it feel like? Depression sometimes feels like you're underwater and can't breathe. That's what it feels like. The uncontrollable crying, the pacing, the walking the floor, the pulling your hair out because you don't know. And when you tell people that this is what's wrong with you, they say, oh, can't you just get over it? What's wrong with you? Well, there's a chemical imbalance. And people who are depressed, usually there's an imbalance somewhere there. You know what I'm saying? Just like alcoholism, just like drug addiction. So.
And when people say, go pray about it, or just read the word and you're going to be okay. But as we read the word, we find two things that occur. One is some people, Jesus healed immediately. And there were some people that it took days. It took time. It wasn't right now. Even Mary and Martha, come, my brother has died. Come on over here. And it took Jesus 3 days to get there.
Yeah.
But when he was walking.
But also, he was walking. But also, let me say this. There's a difference between being cured and being healed.
Yes.
There's a major difference in that. I was in seminary, at Fuller Theological Seminary, and the professor was speaking about healing. And he openly said that he didn't believe in healing because his daughter-in-law had multiple sclerosis and they had prayed and she had not been healed. And I remember asking him, I said, did you ask your daughter-in-law if she was healed? I said, because I believe that she can be healed spiritually, and you not see a cure for it in the natural. Right? And he turned beet red, of course, because who was I? I'm the only one that looked like me in the whole class. He's the professor, and who am I to talk about healing and being cured, right? The difference between the two. I said, you can be healed and not see it in the natural sense, but you can't be cured and not see it in the spiritual sense.
Yes.
Okay. And so I think sometimes, Pastor, when we talk about pray and God will heal you, we have to make that distinction that when I was healed from the abandonment issue, that may or may not have resonated with someone else before they saw the manifestation. Mm-hmm. But I felt the manifestation before I saw it. You understand what I'm saying? And so it's the same way with whether it's alcoholism, depression, cancer, whatever it is. Sometimes, and I really like what you said, sometimes it took days for God to heal people. I think we live in a society that we've perpetuated this microwave process to healing. I prayed, I'm going to say 700 Hail Marys, and that's over. Right? But that's not necessarily true. And so I think when, as pastors, we do a disservice to people if we don't speak truth to power, that God will heal your spiritual man sometimes, and you not see it in your natural man, So yeah, I really appreciate your lifting that it takes days. Sometimes you may or may not see it. But one thing we do have is we're guaranteed, my God, this thing is about to hit my hand. One thing we are guaranteed is that God promised good. Whether it's here or eternity, God promised good. And that's what I've held on to. When I was in a nursing home, and I know that this is your ministry of surviving cancer. But way before I got to cancer, way before I got to that part of my journey, God was doing some stuff behind the scenes for my good. If I look at my life, people are surprised. How did you, like you said earlier, how did you do that? I mean, I had a drug habit of $800 a month. A month. That's a lot. But I was still going to school. I survived stuff, not because I was so good. I was just too afraid to stop fighting. Not because I knew how. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to be in a sober relationship. But I kept fighting because I couldn't die of alcoholism. I mean, I couldn't die of cancer. That just didn't sound right. I need to be frilly and have on pretty stuff when it's time. I don't want to go, because of something else. But yeah. So I mean, it's about a journey, and it's about knowing that God loves us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I love that you said you went and you talked to God and said, God, what is this?
Right. What is this?
Be transparent, be true to yourself and say to yourself, this doesn't feel good. And that's what I think for me, when you talk about depression, I didn't know what I was supposed to feel like. Let me say that. But I knew what I was feeling didn't feel right. Does that make sense to you?
It does. And probably because I've had a bout of depression myself.
Right.
I lost a dear friend. Well, I didn't lose her. I know she went to glory with Jesus. But I was just floating. I had not deliberately grieved internally. I mean, outwardly, but I was just existing. I was doing my normal stuff, existing. As a pastor, I was going through this. And I didn't even know that my world had become dark until I was sitting in my favorite spot and I happened to turn towards the door, and my door is glass. And as if it just all of a sudden got bright. And I said, wow, I'm depressed. The darkness, it just came over me. And I didn't know what to do, how to do. But it was at that point that when the light came on, that I knew I needed to call my doctor. I needed to talk through this with somebody. And I had to admit, I went through 3 different doctors. The second doctor, she should have been in my chair. But to be able to talk through it, even if I thought I was out of it, it wasn't completely over because I'm still dealing with it, right? So talk through it with a medical person. If you're fortunate to have a pastor who understands the psychology of people and of things, oh, what a blessing it is to have that person. But even if it's just a medical doctor that can hear you, understand you, let you talk about those things that you're going through, so God can finish doing what God is doing.
Yes. Pastor Rhonda, let me say this. I think, and I'm hearing the word that you said earlier about pedestals, okay? I think for us, 1, as women, but 2, as clergy women, we have been told or taught that we're not supposed to be transparent. We're supposed to have all the answers. We cannot say what we're going through or any of that. But I see you, Doris Coffey. Thank you for joining us. For me, my transparency is not for your sake.
Oh,
it's not for your sake.
Yes.
My transparency. Oh, God. It's for me.
Yes.
The hardest thing to do in the world is to go to bed at night, not knowing your own truth, not knowing your own worth, not knowing how to value who you are. So, I was not supposed to get emotional because I don't have on waterproof makeup. but it's like, but we have been so guilty of silencing other women. You understand what I'm saying? It's like, I'm sorry that I've caused you any harm. Not by what I've done to you, but what I have not allowed myself to speak. Because every time we mute our own voices, we're muting another sister's voice. Depression is real. Depression is, it's sure enough is real. And we get in these pulpits, and I so love you saying you were pastoring and preaching every single Sunday. And no one, because when you show up for church, they want you to say, how you doing, Pastor? Praise the Lord. I'm highly favored, blessed and highly favored. I had this woman. It's amazing because people don't think we hurt. They don't think we need Sabbath time. They don't think we need vacation time. You're supposed to bury when they say bury, marry when they say marry, be on when they say be on. And it's like, I'm losing my mind. I remember this lady walked past me, Pastor, 5 times in the service. And she came up after service and said to me, Dun, dun. You know how the soul sisters do. Dun, yeah. You walked past me 5 times and you didn't even speak.
Speak. Oh, I didn't even
Okay,
see
so
you.
because I'm having my own meltdown.
Right,
And
right.
I'm trying to not melt
Mm,
down in your presence. Because I got to still get in this pulpit and I've got to not bleed over you. So I've got to give you a word while I'm melting inside and screaming, saying, can I get out of here? Right. So that particular day, I was not able to contain. Hear me. I was not able to contain
yes.
that meltdown. So she said to me,
oh.
right. I tell them all the time, please don't let the genie at the bottle because I can't get her back in when she comes out. So she said to me, she said, you know, you walked past me 5 times and you've not spoken. I said, ma'am, first, let me say this to you. If I walk past you 5 times, that means you've seen me 5 times. And if I didn't speak to you, what was wrong with you speaking to me? Why is it I have to be on and you get permission to be off? Something's wrong with that, right? But it was at that point that I was able to start being transparent. And I appreciate your saying, you know, pastoring, you were pastoring, your friend passed, you were not even able to grieve because the expectation from the congregation is you cannot be human. Not at all. That's a fallacy, right? Well, the congregation I'm in now, they know that I'm human. I put a stone in the back of my head. They're like, what in the world, Pastor? I said, girl, isn't that fabulous? Because that's my own celebration of my life and where I came from, you know? Amen. So, yeah.
And you had the privilege, I'm going to call it a privilege, to experience cancer.
It was an experience. It was, I learned, oh my God, I learned so much about God. You know, I learned of his great love. I had just come back from a mission trip and with myself and my mentor, Reverend Dr. Cecilia Wims Bryant, and she and her husband had taken a delegation to Africa, and I joined them. And I had this pain in my hip. And of course, I self-diagnosed myself, right? So I told the doctor, I said, let me just say this to those of you who are viewing, please don't self-diagnose yourself because it may go longer than you intend for it to go. And so I self-diagnosed. I called my doctor and said, I'm having sciatica and I need you to send some pain medicine to me. So he did, because I self-diagnosed, right? The pain got increasingly worse. And God was so kind to me. I had a dream. I never will forget it. It was the week of Good Friday. I preached that Wednesday for Brookins AME in Los Angeles at that time. And I preached, and I don't even know how it entered into the sermon because it wasn't a part of the sermon. And it was, I thirst, but I said, grace catches you and mercy carries you. Mm-hmm. Don't remember that. That same week, that Friday, Good Friday, I went airborne in my home and I broke the hip. God told me, he showed it to me, and I went to the doctor. And I had gone to the doctor prior to my falling. Let me digress for a moment. Coming back from Africa, I felt this pain. So I went to the doctor, self-diagnosed, then I went to the doctor. When I got to the doctor, he brought all these people in, and I'm sitting there like, well, no one's talking to me. So what's going on? And it was, he said, do you see this? And do you see this? And so finally I spoke up for myself and said, what are you looking at? He said, ma'am, I don't even know how you're walking around. He said, I'm going to tell you right now. Do you see this dot right here? I said, yeah, you have no bone marrow there. You have no cartilage. That's what he said, cartilage. He said, whatever this is holding your bones together. Right. And I was like, what? At that time, the next week was Good Friday. So at that time, it was only 2 tumors, right? I fell within a 4-week period. It had gone from 2 tumors to 6. All right. The doctor looked at me and said, it's so rare. They couldn't do research because in the whole country, there was not even 50 people who had been diagnosed with the same type of cancer. And it's called hemangiophilia. So that's blood, bone, and muscle, which is extremely rare. So when I went airborne in my house, I knew that when I came down, I was going to break the hip because I had seen it in a dream prior to. So the doctor said to me, we've got to do a biopsy, and so we'll know what this is. But I knew it was cancer. I knew it was cancer because God told me. And but I was put in a nursing home, okay, given 5 months to live. And it was there that I learned how to fight.
And what year was that?
It was the first time it was 2007. The first time. That was the first time. And that's why I said there's a cure and there's a healing. Okay. And I'm going to talk about that in this. So I was in the nursing home, and if you've never been in a nursing home, I remember just crying profusely because I knew for me that represented 2 things. It represented death, and it represented my faith in a way that I had never experienced, having to have that kind of faith. I didn't need that faith when I was molested. I didn't need that faith when I was drinking. I didn't need that faith, when my marriage seemed to be rocky. I didn't need that kind of faith. This was a whole nother dimension of faith that I never experienced. Okay. So the doctor had given me 5 months to live. He said, that's all I can give you. And I got so mad because at that time, my husband was older. His health was declining, but we had a young baby. Okay. And you're telling me I'm getting ready to die. So I said to him, you must be crazy. What you mean I'm going to die? Hey, and I wasn't quite as saved as I am now. So I said some choice words that I won't say on, but you can kind of figure which way I was going with this. And I just remember, I didn't know to rebuke the devil. I didn't know to say, by his stripes, I mean, that was far from me. And I was going to church every day, and I was working, and I was in the ministry. But for me at that moment, I didn't need to hear that. I needed to know, how in the world am I going to survive this? Right? It was there, Pastor Rhonda, that the Lord started talking to me. It was there that I learned how to worship God in spirit and in truth. It was there that I could go to God and say, this is hurting like hell. I can't get up today. I don't want to walk today. I don't want these nurses in this room. This is real. And it was at that place that God came and literally stood. Literally stood and walked me through, because of that experience. That was so painful. That was so painful. They gave me medicine because no one in the country, the doctor hadn't seen a case like mine. He had seen one similar, but not my case. So they didn't even know the kind of medication to give me. You understand what I'm saying? They didn't know. So what happened was I became the guinea pig, right? I could only be on the medicine 3 weeks and off for 6 weeks because my feet, I felt like Job. My feet would blister up you had to sit like this because it was all in the pelvic area. So you're looking like, it's like, whoa, Jesus, right? Extremely painful. But I'm going to tell you what helped me to fight. 2 people in this whole world helped me to fight. One was my alcoholic father, who was now sober, and years ago prior to this, he was having heart surgery, and I only knew one scripture growing up, and that was Psalms 91. So he was getting ready to have his chest busted open. So I called him on a drinking binge and say, hey, read Psalm 91. So years later, I'm in a nursing home, almost out of my mind. The phone rings. It's my father. He says, hey, baby. I said, hey, Poppy. He said, read Psalm 91. And that day I knew, okay, I got to read Psalm 91. But my mentor, Reverend Cecilia Williams Bryant, called me one day and said, Roz? I said, yes. She said, there's 30 countries praying for you. And I said, what? She said, there's 30 countries praying for you. And I said, 30? I didn't even know we had 30. She said, 30 countries up here praying for you. In that moment, I said, if there's 30 countries praying for me, people I'll never see, and they'll never see me, then it's time for me to fight for me. That was in 2007. And I started fighting, and God was so kind to me that I had an evangelist in my room who had not spoken in years. And her name was Addie Anderson. And she went to Bishop Blake's church. But when I got in the room, I didn't know that I wasn't supposed to be singing and praying. I'm trying to get up out of a nursing home. I don't know what else to do. So I started just praying and singing and blessed assurance and Jesus is mine. You know what I'm saying? And so I became her prayer warrior because they were mistreating her. And she didn't have a voice, but God put me in the room. I thought I was in the room for the cancer, but I was really in the room to intercede for her. So let me just put a pin there. Don't regret what your journey is, because baby, you on an assignment. I don't know who I'm speaking to right now, but the journey has been difficult, but I hear the Lord saying, don't regret it, because it's somebody you've been assigned to. My God, there's an assignment, Dr. Rhonda, that we have been placed on. When we talk about healing from cancer, cancer is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. But if you look at it as I started walking through the corridors of the hospital, baby, started singing, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. They start calling me racing horse, girl, because I refuse to say, here's the thing, language, the Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue. So I had to learn what did that look like for me? Because, you know, I had been around a whole lot of death, but I had not been around a whole lot of life in the supernatural realm. You understand what I'm saying? Because everything from a child up represented dysfunctional behavior. And that to me was death. You understand? But then, baby, I started thinking about what the Lord said to me. And so I stopped saying I had cancer. Because if I say I had it, that means it belonged to me. Who am I talking to you today? I don't know who I'm talking to, but I can tell you this. I just started saying they diagnosed me with cancer. They diagnosed me with one of the rarest cancers, but it doesn't belong to me. That's how I started talking. And that sounds crazy to most people. You understand? But let me tell you, I had to create an atmosphere. This is good, Rhonda. I had to create an atmosphere conducive for healing.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? So people will come in my room. I tell them, wait a minute, hold on. Did you tell God thank you for the day? Hold on, wait a minute. Did you ask God, could you come see me today? And they would look at me like I was crazy, but I knew enough to know that if you didn't come into agreement with what I was praying for, when you're in a battle for your life, this ain't about you. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I didn't invite you to the party, but this ain't a pity party. I'm finna fight and whoop the crap out of the devil, because he thought, I started saying stuff like, God, I just want you to beat the crap out the devil, because he thought it was okay to bother me. I got a husband at home. What I look like sitting up in this nursing home? I preached my way out of the nursing home. I was on a walker. I danced my way in the pulpit at First AME Los Angeles on a walker. Left there with the grant, danced my way. So it is a journey, Pastor. It's up to you. How do you choose to look at the journey? In 2000, and that was 2007, 2016. Now, in 2007, God healed me with medication. Hear me. In 2016, it hit this left hip, and it came back with a vengeance. And God said, I'm going to show you who I really am. For 2 months, and I was blessed to have 10 preachers, all women on my staff, all of whom came into the ministry or came to my church while I was serving at Walker Temple. I was blessed enough to have Dr. Tamer, Tamer Bryant Davis, who was my executive associate pastor. She took over. Nobody knew I was sick. I couldn't tell anyone because the Lord said, don't tell a soul. I'm going to show you. I was walking like this. My hand was under my hip. If I moved my hand, my hip would slip out, right? On October, the first Sunday in October 2016, do you know Pastor Deborah Ward? God rest her soul. She's now around that throne of grace, shouting glory. But I went to a church to preach her anniversary. She said to me, you walked in one way, but God's going to use you. And you're going to walk out another way. On that day, Apostle Al Fornes, Latino brother out there in Whittier, bad to the bone. After I finished preaching, people were getting healed. I was laying hands on people, they were getting healed. But I'm sick. But I'm getting people getting healed. He said, Pastor Roz, do you believe God can heal you? I said, yes, I do. He blew the breath of God on me. One was a natural healing. The other was a supernatural healing. One took place with medication. The other took place with the word of God. When the two came together in 2016 and 2007, when they came together, guess what? Then God decided that he was going to let me live just a little bit longer because he knew I needed to be on your show today. To encourage somebody. I don't know where you are. I really don't know. I don't know what your journey looks like. But if God stretched my leg out, if God healed me from cancer, not once but twice, the rarest cancer in the country, he delivered me from drugs, alcohol, promiscuous relationships. He allowed me to be released of the depression. He has now stood up tall in me and called me one of his pastors. You guys got some jokes, I'm telling you. He's got some jokes. Do you hear me? I never would have been a preacher. Man. But God has some jokes. So God's plans are not like our plans, Pastor. You understand? And so for me, talking about the journey is such a privilege and an honor because I can look back and see how God has orchestrated each piece in my life to get me to this place where I can say, I know without a shadow of a doubt that he works miracles. He works miracles. Yeah. You know, he sent you to that doctor only for 3 days later to come back to say, this is what it is. But you had enough in you to fight. And whoever we're talking to today, I don't know who you are. I don't know where you are. But what I want to say to you is don't give up your hope. Don't throw in the towel. He's going to come through. God always does. He's going to come through. I'm so full right now, Pastor, because I told someone the other day, I now like myself. All of the rejection, all of the abandonment, all of the fear, all of the feeling unworthy and, and all of that, he rolled the stone away, and I now like myself. And so that's a part of the journey, is liking yourself and figuring out, okay, so what? I can't wear a bathing suit. So what? You know what I'm saying? And I can if I felt like it. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not so judgmental, and I'm not so perfect. I don't have it all together. I probably will never have it all together. You know what I'm saying? But I have a sister named Rhonda, and I can pick up the phone and say I'm hurting when I need to. And I think that's part of who we are, right? That's why you do what you do, right? Because God came close and he stood right there. And so I'm just grateful. I didn't mean to take over your spot right there. I didn't mean to take over. It just started flowing. So, but.
Wow. I can truly tell that we need another conversation, just the two of us, to share with the world, because your testimony truly shows the love and the power of God. Whew.
Yes. Pastor,
not just for us by ourselves, it's for every single person. And sometimes it takes us a long time to realize that the love that Jesus has is for us.
Yes.
It's for me all by myself. It's for you all by yourself.
And you know what's so wonderful about that is when you think about that kind of love, Rhonda, it's like Pastor Rhonda, it's like I thought I loved my husband, and I know I did. You understand? Well, I was crazy about him, and he knew it. And I know that I love my son. Good God of grace. But I don't know that kind of love, that he would lay his life down for me.
Right.
You understand? And I like what you just said about it's all for me. He loves you, but baby, I'm his favorite.
No.
Right? Because his word is so personal.
Yes.
It's communal, but it's individual.
Yes.
So, I told him this morning, I got up and I said, I just love how you talk to me now. I just love how you just walk in my room and just blow. Wake up, daughter. Who does that? Well, run your fingers through my hair. I don't have very much, but I'm in love with you. I want to delight myself in you, is what the Lord is saying. I want to show myself off in you. Me, nothing but dirt and dust. Me. But he wants to show himself, and so he gave me this prayer, and it's just a one-liner. And it says, simply for your glory. Simply for your glory. So all of that, everything that I do is simply for his glory. I've done everything. I've traveled everywhere. I had probably one of the most renowned husbands that you and I know, lived in some of the best homes. But that never brought me happiness. I am the happiest I've ever been in my life because I know he loves me. Amen. I don't have to wonder. This thing called cancer is just a part of celebrating life, right? It's just a part of that. It's just a part of, he just had to do it just so he didn't cause it. He allowed us to go through it, because had I not gone through it, I wouldn't have never met a wonderful woman such as yourself.
Amen.
And so I just pray that today has been a blessing for someone. I can't even thank you enough for inviting me. What a privilege to be in your presence. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, just to be in your presence and to partake in celebrating life. And I bless God for you.
Amen.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
we're going to wrap this up for today. Pastor Roz, thank you for sharing, for being so transparent, sharing your life and the journey that God has brought you through. There is much that we need to talk about going forward. So we're just going to go ahead and put some things on the calendar. So again, thank you so much for being with us today.
Amen. Amen. And let me just say, if you're looking for me, you can get in touch with me. I'm the pastor of the #1 church in Parks Chapel, the New Parks Chapel in Oakland, California. And my email address is rosalynbrookins@gmail.com. Again, I bless you, mighty woman of God, and I declare and decree over your life today that eyes have not seen it and ears have not heard it, neither has it entered into the hearts of people what God is going to do for you. And I thank you for this opportunity to come and participate in celebrating life. And to all of you that's viewing today, whether it is Facebook Live or Pastor Rhonda said you were on all kinds of stations. I don't know what you're on, but let me just say, as my sister has already said, I thank God for you and for your journey, but know that God is with you. Thank you so much. And God bless you, Pastor. And I'll see you soon, okay?
Okay. And again, I am Pastor Rhonda, founder of Celebrate Life Cancer Ministry, and your host for Celebrate Life today. And if you are a cancer survivor or a caregiver and you need support, you need someone to talk to, feel free to reach out to us on our website at celebratelifecm.org. And the number is there to just give us a call. The number is 424-258-5433. And until next time, I'm trying to get this done right. Until next time, we ask you to choose life. God bless you.
God bless. Thank you, woman of God. Bye-bye.